Let's now shift our attention to Turkey, which is currently on the edge. Now, the arrest of Istanbul's mayor has triggered a wave of protests and demonstrations across the biggest cities. Istanbul and Ankara are witnessing large demonstrations. The opposition is accusing the president of staging a coup against democracy. But the government says that no one is above the law. Istanbul is witnessing some massive demonstration for the second day in a row. University students joined protesters to demand the release of the detained mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu.
İstanbul Büyükşehir Belediye Başkanı Üniversitesi Yönetim Kurulu, Bilimin ve Akademinin tarafından...
Yasaklar sizi mücadeleceğiz.
On Wednesday night, protests turned violent after many clashed with the police in Turkey's capital, Ankara. The police used pepper spray to scatter the protesters as thousands have rallied and chanted anti-government slogans.
For a long time, there was a threat. These mayors were being threatened. They were targeted, for example, with the city agreement, with wrong and false news. And these things happened yesterday. They're stealing people's votes.
I see it as a strong injustice. They hastily detained our mayor that we elected through our votes. I do not think it is a democratic practice, and I condemn it.
So as the public outrage continues to grow, the detained mayor posted a lengthy statement on social media platform X. Now, İmamoğlu urged the judiciary to quote-unquote take action. Now, protests began in Turkey shortly after the police detained Istanbul's mayor on charges of corruption and allegedly aiding a terror group. Now, the opposition party has slammed the leader's arrest and has accused the administration of quote-unquote staging a coup against Turkey's next president. Now, the timing of the Istanbul mayor's arrest is under question. Just ahead of his detention, a university had invalidated İmamoğlu's diploma. The move essentially had disqualified him from running in the next presidential race. A university degree, interestingly, is mandatory to contest an election in Turkey. And the opposition party was positioned to announce İmamoğlu as their presidential candidate on the 23rd of March. Now, many analysts call İmamoğlu as the incumbent president, Erdogan's fiercest political rival. The critics argue that it is the president who is cracking down on the opposition, but Turkey's justice minister has warned against involving the president's name and has justified the mayor's detention as the law taking its own course.
Linking the investigations and cases launched by our judiciary to our president, Erdogan, is in the lightest term impudence. It is not knowing your limits. The separation of powers, with the legislative, executive, and the judiciary, is the basis of our country. The judiciary does not receive orders or instructions from anyone.
Now, 53-year-old Ekrem İmamoğlu has been active politically for about a decade now. Formerly a businessman, İmamoğlu had joined politics when he was 43 years old. Now a senior leader of the Republican People's Party, he had gained prominence after winning the 2019 Istanbul's mayoral election. His win came as a major setback to Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who considered Istanbul to be his bastion and also his home ground. But İmamoğlu, considered a kind and an approachable politician by many, won the election again in 2024. And that victory had made him the RPP's front-runner presidential candidate for the 2028 elections. All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of what is happening in Turkey at the moment, we're joined by Mr. Mehmet Çelik, who's a journalist and a political analyst, who's joining us live on this broadcast from Istanbul in Turkey. Now, Mr. Çelik, this is something that's going to be looked at very carefully. The protests that have broken out across Turkey, İmamoğlu's detention by the Turkish government, where the justice minister in Turkey says that it is just law following its own course. But a lot of İmamoğlu's supporters say that this is Erdogan who's trying to take out the individual who could be his biggest challenger in the 2028 elections. What's happening in Turkey at the moment?
Well, of course, I mean, indeed, Mr. İmamoğlu is one of the strong and very popular politicians in today's Turkey's domestic politics, and this is a fact. But I think there's a few things that we need to separate from each other. One is the fact that there is an ongoing judicial process at the moment involving not just Mr. İmamoğlu, but other suspects as well. And this judicial process is not just linked to one case or one issue only. There are several accusations regarding the involved individuals. Now, this is also a judicial process that we should separate from the opposition's attempt to portray this or expose this as a political move against Mr. İmamoğlu. Of course, this is something that the opposition will use and exploit to portray it as a political move against someone that has become very popular in Turkish politics. But there is also a fact that there is some strong allegations against individuals, including Mr. İmamoğlu, that the independent judiciary will have to deal with. And I think in this case, there's two things that must be mentioned. One is that everyone is innocent until proven guilty. So this is a fact that everyone must follow. And the other one is that there is a judicial process that everyone must respect at the same time. I think, of course, there's political implications. There's a political atmosphere that will be affected by this. This is
Mr. Çelik, I think you've made a fair point. But the question that a lot of people want to know is the fact that İmamoğlu has been able to challenge Erdogan within Istanbul. Istanbul was considered Erdogan's bastion, but İmamoğlu has managed to win the mayoral election not once but twice now. Does it mean that Erdogan is losing the grip that he's had on the people in the Istanbul area, and that is what is creating some jitters within the ruling establishment there?
In the most recent elections, Mr. Erdogan had lost in Istanbul and Ankara, but he also won the presidency. This is something, local elections are separate than municipal elections. Having said that, I think one thing that must be also underlined is that, you know, this figure has some very strong allegations against him, and most of these allegations are coming from individuals that are involved directly in business with these suspects, as well as some of the allegations are coming and the witnesses are coming from his party itself.
All right, very interesting. We'll have to leave there. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Mehmet Çelik, for joining us with that perspective from Istanbul then.
Thank you.